by next week, you should read the book and take some quizzes online for Chapter 1 and the first part of Chapter 6. And you should do the first projects, which I should point out here. I'm glad you reminded me. And there's 3 possible ways to do it. You don't have to do all 6 of these. You have to do any pair. And the reason is you have to get an Android emulator phone working. And it depends on your operating system. So I'm glad you reminded me to talk about this. So the first thing is get your Android emulator set up. For almost every student, you just want to do 140 and 141, which I think is what it says here. Yeah. This is probably best for everybody. This is Google's development environment. Android, you install Android Studio. This works on every operating system, and for most students, this works best. You install Android Studio, and I should have it here. Let me just get it going. Yep, I got Android Studio. You can use this to write apps, which we are not going to do, but you can use it to run an emulator and analyze apps. So this gives you an environment to work in, and you can have an emulated phone like I have here. So when I start it up, it should launch. Okay, I tried to launch it twice, but it's going to come up. And there it is. Here's my phone. And it looks like it's probably still booting up. I might have to shut it down and power it up again, depending on what state I left it in. I think I'll do that. I'm going to close it here. Don't save the state. I'm going to do a cold boot, which I have to do sometimes when my phone fouls up. There's an option here to do cold boot, complete boot from power off. Often you have to do this. The emulators are a little buggy. They tend to get confused and crash, and a cold boot is often required. So this should boot up. There we are. Now it's booting up the Android, and it'll take a minute or 2 to load. Here we are. So there's my Android environment. I drag this thing up, and I can see all my apps, and I got a settings app. And so you can install apps on this phone and run them, and you can connect it to, you can investigate how it works. You can look at the logs, you can look at the storage, and you can look at the network traffic. And so if you do these projects, that's what you do. This one, you just have to get your emulator working. The next one, you connect it to go through Burp, which is how you analyze the network traffic coming out of it. And so Burp is another product which you install in this project. Get Burp running, and then you connect it to your phone in the settings. And then what happens is when you run like here I run a website called Hackazon, one of my web servers that is an imitation Amazon you can practice hacking into in my other classes. And in Burp, you can just see all the network traffic. You'll be able to see all the requests made to the server and all the responses coming from the phone. And this is what you often do to understand the network traffic from the app and see if it's doing things it shouldn't be doing, like sending unencrypted data or not verifying the certificate or making other mistakes. So there's the first couple of projects are getting these things going. And you've got some flags to turn in. So so by next week, you should start doing that. Read the first couple chapters and get some kind of emulator going. And these are just alternative emulators for other systems. Most of you will not need them. Most of you can use Android Studio for whatever you're doing. It used to be that some of the Windows users had to use other things like BlueStacks. Now I think Android Studio runs in every operating system. So try that and only do these other things if it fails. And I've kept them around for some students with strange systems that can't. Here's the alternative emulators, which you can use, but most of these, you usually don't need these. I just left them there in case you need them, because there are occasionally students with a strange machine that can't run Android Studio. But these days, pretty much everybody can use Android Studio. So, and if you want to go ahead and do further projects, always feel free. And there's a whole lot of extra things. Go as fast as you like, but you should get some kind of emulator running pretty soon, because you can't have any fun until you start getting these hands-on projects going. All right, yeah.
So you said earlier that you don't like the server in City College, so does it mean that we will not have the homework on Canvas?
Yeah, I don't use the City College Canvas. There is a Canvas here. Use this one. This one is not City College. You enroll, make an account here and use this one. Yeah, that's the one I use instead of the City College one because I control it. The main thing City College does is they set the class to end on the last day of class, and that means I cannot even communicate with the students anymore. The mailbox doesn't work, nothing works. You can't even go there to see your grade. That's the main, and also sometimes they erase everything. So they did that a couple of times, and that's when I said I'm not using their stuff. I learned years ago, never use the college's version of anything, because they just run it all with kind of poor standards. So I prefer to run my own servers so I know what's happening. if they foul up, at least I have some control over it. All right, and let me stop this recording.